Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another video, the part 3 to this, crazy series. It's Muslim Dragon 304 again, and we are, I guess I'll be the only guy talking here since no one else is, too brave enough to start speaking. Is there? Oh, there you go. Some guy's about to speak. Okay, never mind. He stopped speaking. Okay, I'm just gonna share the video until see what the other folks are going to say or do. So let's go back to the playlist. So all right, here it is. Here's the playlist, and we already saw those first 3 videos with Squidium and with RGS Royal Gamer RGS, I believe. And yeah, so let's just move on to this one and see what we're in for. Because I know we're going to be in for a lot of sweet time.
In this video, I'm going to Assalamu alaikum. In this video, I'm going to cover what we find in ancient rabbinic literature, the suggestion that Adam somehow resembled God, and so it seems that the ancient rabbis were looking at the idea that God created Adam in his image a lot more literally than many Jews would today. So we're going to look at one midrash, and then we'll look at a couple narrations in the Talmud. So here's the midrash. The reference is at the top. When the Holy One of Blessing created the first Adam, the ministering angels erred and wanted to say the Kedoshah before him. What is Kedoshah? Kedoshah is also the name of a prayer in Judaism which describes God's holiness. So it's a prayer for His holiness. To express His holiness.
Yes.
A parable. A king and his governor were in a chariot, and the people of the realm wanted to say Domin or Domain to the king, but didn't know which was the king. So what did the king do? He shoved the governor and ejected him from the chariot, and everyone knew that one was the governor. So too, when the Holy One of Blessing created the first Adam, the ministering angels erred and wanted to say the Kedoshah before him. What did the Holy One of Blessing do? He caused a slumber to fall upon him, so everyone knew that one was the Adam, as it is written, with Ra from the Adam, who has breath in his nostrils, or who has breath in his nostrils, for how little is he to be esteemed, Isaiah 2:22. So here the angels are confusing Adam and God. They mistake Adam for God to the point where they want to say the prayer which is supposed to glorify God to Adam, seemingly because they confused Adam for God. So there seems to be an indication that they thought that Adam resembled God, and so when it says Adam was created in the image of God, it seems they were looking at this a lot more literally to believe that Adam was like God in resemblance.
And we of course know the Quranic verses about the story of Adam alayhi salam and Surah Al-Ikhlas. So honestly, this is just really I'm just gonna be honest. This is really stupid.
Okay, so now let's go here in the Talmud. Right, okay, so references at the top, and so you'll see they're discussing many different people who they believe were born already circumcised. So here they believe Job emerged already circumcised. They believe here that Jacob emerged already circumcised, Joseph emerged already circumcised, Moses also emerged already circumcised. And then right in the middle here is what we want to look at. They say Adam also emerged already circumcised, as it says in Genesis 1:24, and God created the person in His image. Seth also emerged already circumcised, as it says in Genesis 5:2.
No,
he,
not this
meaning
again.
Adam, had a child in his likeness and image.
So, because you remember in the previous part 2, they're talking about the. Can't believe I'm gonna be saying this again. The divine phallus. So this is reminding me of those freaking, Vietnam flashback,
So Adam was already circumcised, and Seth, his son, was created in the image of Adam. And so because Seth was created in the image of Adam, and Adam was already circumcised, therefore Seth was circumcised already as well. So if you take that same logic actually and you apply it to God, the reason that Adam is already circumcised is because he was created in the image of God. And so presumably that means that God himself is circumcised, right? Because how do we know Seth was circumcised? Because Adam was circumcised and Seth was made in the image of Adam. So similarly, the way we know that Adam is circumcised is because he was created in the image of God. And that would suggest again that Adam, or that God himself was circumcised. And we say something like that, Subhanallah, perfect is Allah, far above these sorts of descriptions and speaking about him without any knowledge. So I've written this out for you because it can be a little bit confusing.
And I don't know how these people who wrote this stuff even stomach this idea, or even try to attribute this kind of stuff to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Astaghfirullah al-azim. How does it mentally process? And these are the chosen people, I guess. These are the people who apparently they were so pious and so noble or whatever, So how could they do this? It's nuts, really. It really is nuts. And I'm even eating nuts. I'm just kidding.
So we know Seth, who again is the son of Adam. Seth is circumcised. We know he's circumcised when he emerges from the womb, because he, meaning Seth, was created in the image of Adam, who was circumcised. Right? So Seth is circumcised because he was created in the image of Adam, who was already circumcised. So similarly, that same logic, remember, it's the same justification, the fact that both were made in the image, right? So Adam being created in the image of God, and Seth being created in the image of Adam. So it's the same sort of logic we're dealing with here. So just like Seth is circumcised because he was created in the image of Adam, who was circumcised, similarly, Adam was circumcised, and we know this because he was created in the image of God, who was, the implication would be, circumcised himself. And that again would also show clearly that they were looking at the idea that God created Adam in his image to mean that Adam somehow resembled God. Right? Otherwise, this justification that we know that Adam is circumcised because he's created in the image of God, that doesn't even make any sense. Right? I've written it in different words here, so if you don't understand,
you didn't really need to write any more other words. This was more than enough. This right here was just more than enough.
And you can check this out. Because Seth was created in the image of Adam, who was already circumcised, therefore Seth too is circumcised. Similarly, because Adam was created in the image of God, and the implication would be who was already circumcised, Adam too is circumcised. So you see, it's the same logic here. We just have to use the logic that we use to find out, okay, why are they saying Seth is circumcised? Because he's created in the image of Adam, and apply that to Adam and God. Okay, so that was the second indication that they believed that Adam somehow resembled God. Let's go to this place in the Talmud.
Oh no.
Right here. Ooh, okay, reference is at the top. I heard in a lecture of Rabbi Yehoshua that there is a different reason why one may not fashion a figure of a human face. So why can't you make a figure of a human face, a human face? The verse states, "You shall not make me," in Exodus 20:20. But this can be read, "You shall not make me," or sorry, "You shall not make with me." Okay, so let me read that again because I messed up the English. Okay, so I heard in a lecture of Rabbi Yehoshua that there is a different reason why one may not fashion a figure of a human face. The verse states, "You shall not make with me," in Exodus 20:20, but this can be read as "You shall not make me." So the verse where it says, "You shall not make with me an image," can be read as "You shall not make with," or "You shall not make me an image." So do not create an image of me, right? So the verse apparently doesn't just mean don't make an idol with me, another god, but also don't make me, right? Don't make an image of me, meaning don't make an image of God.
I mean, we kind of agree in the sense that, you shouldn't make images of the Prophet, and you shouldn't make images of God, Jalla Jalaluhu subhanahu amma yasifun. But at the same time, it's just baffling how this it's like they're still honing in on the fact that it's real and not metaphorical, even though a lot of other Jews would disagree, be like, "Oh no, it's metaphorical, trust me bro, it's metaphorical." But well, here's your Talmud, bro. What are you gonna say? You're gonna deny your Talmud now, make takfir of it?
Okay.
Oh hey, assalamu alaikum, brother Jesus the Muslim, how you doing?
Alaikum assalam. I'm doing good. How about you?
Alhamdulillah. We're just looking at this honestly retardation over here. So so yeah, let's just Any comments so far?
Bro, I think I'm a bit late, so I don't have any comment right now.
I mean, we weren't. I mean, this is the first video anyway, so you weren't that late. But yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's just move on, I guess.
So from this, they're deriving that one may not fashion a figure of a human face. Well, how would the fact that God said, apparently, that you shall not make an image of me mean that therefore you cannot make an image of a human face? Obviously, they were thinking that that Adam somehow and man somehow resembles God, and that is the meaning of God created Adam in his image.
Actually, it makes things worse because in the first video they're talking about how apparently because they're racist, so they thought that because before they were talking about the punishment to humans was to blacken their skin, and going by this logic, if humans are supposed to be images of God, and then therefore God is punishing humans by making them look black, therefore they're saying that God is punishing himself by making him look worse. You see the line of logical reasoning?
Yeah, it becomes weird. Like,
It becomes really like dangerous. It becomes really, really problematic. Yeah.
very dark.
Very dark, very scary. And but let's remind ourselves, this is the chosen people. So like, yeah.
As it says here, since the human being was created in the image of God, right? So since the human being was created in the image of God, therefore, when it says you shall not make me an image of me, therefore we cannot even make images of human beings, right? It is since the human being was created in the image of God, it is prohibited to fashion an image of a human being, but fashioning figures of other attendants of God is permitted. Right? So because we're not allowed to create images of God, and man was made in the image of God, therefore you can also not make images of man. That is the analogy here, and that would suggest to us they were looking at this a lot more literally, and they were thinking that Adam and man somehow resembled God. So I'm going to summarize the examples, then I'll give my comments. So the first example was the angels get God and Adam confused.
Okay, we know.
They think Adam is God, and they want to say Kadosha before him. That would imply resemblance. This is the Midrash with the reference here. Second one here, they were mentioning how we know Seth is circumcised because he's created in the image of Adam, who was already circumcised. And we know Adam is circumcised because he was created in the image of God, who would, from that logic, be himself circumcised. In fact, even the justification here presumes some sort of likeness between God and Adam. Otherwise, the verse they use to support this idea that Adam was emerged circumcised doesn't make any sense. Right? The only logical way for you to look at that is if you thought there was some resemblance between God and Adam. Finally, we looked at here the mention that you shall not make me, right? You shall not make an image of me. This is used as evidence for the fact that you can also not make images of man. And the reason given is because man was created in the image of God. And so that would imply resemblance, right? Even the fact that they use this idea, this justification that you shall not make an image of me as justification that you cannot make images of man implies that they thought there was some sort of resemblance. So what does Allah say about all this? فاطر السماوات والأرض جعل لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا ومن الأنعام أزواجا يزرعكم فيه ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. Originator, I don't know why it says creator here, but originator of the heavens and the earth. He has made for you from yourselves mates, and among the cattle mates. He multiplies you thereby. There is nothing like unto him, and he is the hearing and the seeing.
Well, the reason why I was trying to correct it is because you're really supposed to read it without, it's supposed to read the Quran without using your own original accents. You're supposed to read it the way that it's meant to be read and meant to be heard. So, yeah, unless you're reading a different node, then sure, by all means. However, this is, I believe, Hafs, so you should read the way Hafs read it. So, yeah.
The hearing, the seeing. So they're saying that Adam somehow resembles God. We say there is nothing like unto God. Nothing resembles him. And yes, actually in Islam we do believe that Adam was created in the image of God. But the meaning of that is not that he somehow resembles God, but the meaning is, okay, so Adam saw, he heard these types of attributes, and God also has hearing and sight and these types of things. But there's a difference here. The difference is, as even in this ayah, we have لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There is nothing like unto him, and he is the hearing, the seeing. So when we say there is nothing like God, that doesn't mean, because what some philosophers and some extreme people do is, well, because there's nothing like God, therefore that means God cannot see, God cannot hear, he's blind, he's deaf, all these things, he's mute, etc., etc. Because if we say that somehow he hears, he sees, while we hear as well, so that would mean God is like us. No, that's not how it works. When we say God hears, and when we say God sees, and we say God has life, etc., that doesn't mean he's like humans.
Exactly.
Because his life, his hearing, his seeing is not like our hearing, our seeing, our life, right? So yes, he has these positive attributes of hearing and seeing and life, etc., etc., but at the same time they're unique to him. His hearing cannot be compared to our hearing. His hearing is very different. He hears everything all the time perfectly, etc. We cannot hear like that. It's a very different type of hearing. His seeing is very different. Right, his life is perfect. He doesn't die. He has a different sort of life than we do. So yes, he has these attributes, but at the same time, there's nothing like him. There's nothing that resembles him. And so we believe that when Adam is created in the image of God, the meaning is, like God has hearing and seeing and this and that, Adam had these attributes as well. But the difference is that the attributes of God are unique to him in terms of, they're not, his hearing and seeing, etc., is not like our hearing and seeing, etc. So even though Adam had some of the similar attributes, like hearing and seeing in life, that doesn't mean that those attributes that Adam had were like the same attributes that God had. Rather, the difference between God's hearing and seeing and this and that, and the hearing and seeing of Adam was quite different, right? So
but at the same time, it's also, some scholars also suggest that what it means by what God is referring to when he says in his image, it can also mean in Adam's image, because Adam has an image anyway. So they say that God also could be referring to that as well. But in all cases, like the verse stands.
The Islamic view is not that somehow that Adam resembled God. Rather, this is the better view, and this is the view I would call you to, that لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There is nothing like unto him, and he is the hearing, the seeing, right? So yes, he does. There's nothing like him, but at the same time, he does have those attributes. Because again, there are some people who say no, he has no attributes. Because if we say he has any attribute, that means he's like a human being. No, that's a incorrect way of looking at it. And of course, all this idea that Adam is created in the image of God, it also bleeds into this sort of problem that we see over and over again in ancient rabbinic literature, where God is sort of turned, God is made to resemble man in a way. So in the Tanakh, we find God resting and refreshing and regretting. Talmudic literature, he's crying.
We saw in the previous video,
Studying Torah and wearing, with these religious symbols on his head, like religious Jews do. God playing and writing a cherub and listening to songs, and I think I mentioned crying and all this stuff, and getting in a midrash you have him getting confused and all these things. So taking God and sort of turning him into a man, ascribing blasphemies to him and imperfections, and so this would be another example of that, sort of saying that Adam and mankind, people, somehow resemble God. So
it's funny because it's like we said previously, like what qualms do Jews have with Christians? Jews, they try to make the creator look like a human, but the Christians are the inverse. They try to make a human look like the creator. In both cases, it's wrong. It's like high forms of shirk and high forms of just disbelief. But at the same time, it's just seriously like, what's wrong? Like, and you're kind of, I mean, they also believe in the current version of the Old Testament. So I mean, there's nothing wrong, right? Like, what's so harmful about it? Because it's a one extra profit for you guys. I mean, shouldn't that be good?
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, this is a disaster.
Yeah.
What you say, brother?
I said that I don't understand. I don't understand why they have a problem with Christians
Exactly.
when
Yeah.
they have this weird belief.
I mean, they're kind of like I can't say copy paste, but they kind of have very similar beliefs at this point. But yeah,
Bro,
that would be a big problem in Judaism. Whereas in Islam, we believe no, God is far above these types of things.
exactly.
But at the same time, we don't say, again, this philosophical position that, oh, there's nothing like, oh, God doesn't even have life. We can't even say that. We can't even say he has hearing and seeing. All this is a big metaphor and this and that. No, he does see, he does hear, etc. He's not dumb and deaf and mute. No, but his attributes, these attributes of his are not comparable to our attributes. Like his life is not like our life, etc.
Yeah, so we just take it the way he just tells us. If he tells us something about himself, we just take it. We don't need to make our own definitions and our own explanations to it, because we are fallible. We don't know everything. We don't know him. Like, ultimately speaking, we don't know like everything about him. I don't think we'll reach a point where we know everything about him. So we can't make, judgments. We can't say, oh, this is what he looks like. This is what he has. He has this like us and stuff like that. We can't just do that. That's wrong.
Yeah. We only know what he told us.
Exactly. Yep.
I said,
And so this is going to be Jewish Midrash portrays. Oh God. Okay, this is going to be something else.
No.
Oh no. Here we go.
Assalamu alaikum. One of the major problems with Judaism is sort of their description of God. So there are a lot of blasphemies that are attributed to him, weaknesses, imperfections, etc. So one of the criticisms that can be made about Judaism is Christianity took a man and they turned him into God, and Judaism took God and in many respects they turned him into a man.
See?
So we've been discussing many of these aspects on the channel. So the idea of God resting and refreshing and regretting and crying and wearing tefillin and studying Torah and playing, etc., etc. So there are many examples of this. How about Adam resembles God and whatnot? And so there's a midrash which really goes into this when it tells its story. And so I thought it'd be useful in this video to read the midrash and see sort of how the ancient rabbis were perceiving God, because clearly the Talmudic rabbis were seeing God, with in a much more human way, etc. And so it'd be interesting to read this midrash and again get a perspective of how the ancient rabbis were perceiving who God was.
I guess, one way we could kind of defend them with their own weird, stupid logic is possibly that they wanted God to be way more closer to them, so they try to make him look like them. But again, it just still falls short, because you can't do that. You do, and you don't do that, but, it is what it is.
So this midrash is based on the story of the destruction of the temple, or I should say it's based on the destruction of the temple. That is what the story is based on. It's based on God's reaction to the destruction of the temple. So let's read through it and we'll see a lot of problematic things. So the reference is at the top. That is why I say, let me be, I will weep bitterly. Press not to comfort me for the ruin of my poor people. Isaiah 22:4. Said Resh Lakish, there were 3 moments when the angels wanted to sing a song in front of the Holy One of Blessing, and he did not permit them, namely in the generation of the flood, and at the Sea of Reeds, and at the destruction of the temple. At the generation of the flood, as it is written, Adonai said, my Lord, or my breath shall not abide in man forever, Genesis 6:3. At the sea, as it is written, the one who could not come near the other all through the night, Exodus 14:20. And at the destruction of the temple, as it is written, that is why I say, let me be, I will weep bitterly, press not to comfort me, Isaiah 22:4. So according to this midrash interpretation, God was weeping bitterly, and he was saying, "Press, do not comfort me." So, right, the whole idea here is the angels were trying to sing in front of God to comfort him because he was clearly very sad about the temple being destroyed, and God said, "No, don't comfort
Oh
me."
my god.
As he,
Like, astaghfirullah, man. The angels are trying to sing to comfort him. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
Is this for
Man,
real?
dude, you haven't seen the half of it, man. You haven't seen the half of it. You haven't seen it. You were. I don't think you were here like last time when we reacted to this. Trust me, you've missed out on a lot. And then in the part, let me just send. I'll send you the part 2 after this. But trust me, in the part 2, you'll understand everything. But yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. Like, I can't believe, and you know what's even worse? So they take the scripture, that Moses gave to them, alayhi salam. They made tahrif on it, so they changed it to their own liking, and then they're trying to make exegesis on it, and then this is what they get. This is the result. So they're taking something that's muharraf, and then they're making tafsir of this muharraf script. Logic zero, logic is thrown out of the window.
he's weeping. It is not written, "Do not continue, but do not press." This tells that the Holy One of Blessing said to the angels of service, "All these consolations that you are saying in front of me, press me." So the angel's trying to console him, and he's saying, "Don't." Why? For my Lord Elohim of hosts had a day of tumult and din and confusion. So God had a day of confusion and tumult and din. What does tumult and din mean, by the way? Because these are English words you probably never heard of. Din means like loud, confused, and usually inharmonious sounds. Uproar, turmoil, disturbance, commotion, turbulence, agitation, loud, confusing, loud noises, sounds, noises, tumult, a state of noisy, confused activity,
What the
noise,
heck?
sounds, etc. So this is sort of what tumult and din means. So God had a day of tumult and din and confusion.
So he was like literally doing the confused screaming meme. Like, astaghfirullah, but like,
Exactly, yeah.
like, what the heck, though, man? Like, come on.
Very problematic. Why is God confused? Another interpretation of my Lord Elohim of hosts summoned on that day to weeping and lamenting. So he was weeping and lamenting. What does lamenting mean? It means mourning, right?
Yeah.
Express one's deep grief about something. So he was mourning, he was weeping, etc. At the moment that the Holy One of Blessing decided to destroy the house, he said, "While I am still in it, the people of the world cannot touch it. Rather, I will turn my eyes from it and swear that I won't see it until the end of times." And the enemies came and destroyed it. Immediately the Holy One of Blessing swore by his right hand and hid it on his back, as it is written, "He has hidden his right hand in the presence of the foe."
What?
Lamentations 2:3. At that very moment, the enemies entered in the temple and burned it, and once it was burned, the Holy One of Blessing said, "Again, there is no dwelling for me on the earthland. I will separate my Shekhinah," which is his presence, "from it, and I will go to my original residence, as it is written, and I will return to my abode until they realize their guilt and search for my face." Hosea 5:15. At that very moment, the Holy One of Blessing was crying and saying, "Oh, woe to me! What did I do? I caused my Shekhinah to stay below of Israel, and now that they sinned, I return to my original residence. I should become a joke to the peoples and a motif of laughter among humans." By the way, the Shekhinah is like the divine presence, so Talmudic literature, there are some rabbis who would look at that and say that is God himself. Others would say, no, that is a creation of God. So there is disagreement. In the Zohar, it is the female aspect of God.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It is. Oh no. Oh yeah. I just remembered it. That's what's supposed to be. Oh my god. Yeah. Yep.
So they literally try to describe God in that verse.
So in the Zohar, which is another book that they believe in secretly, but you have to be super mature, I guess. You have to like reach the age of like 69 to be able to like touch it. Essentially, there's a Sefirot of God. I guess it's like a Safa or something, whereby when God separates himself, he separates this being, which is tied to the earth. and that being apparently is the female side of God, astaghfirullah, called Shekhinah.
Wrong.
Yeah. Like this is all like said in like in part 2, which I'll send you the link. Don't worry.
But
Oh my
so
days.
just want to declare what it means. I was
Do it right
dwelling, my Shekhinah was dwelling there, etc., etc. Okay.
It's just bad.
anyway,
It's terrible.
So notice how here God is crying and he's saying, "Woe to me! What did I do? I should become a joke to the people, a laughing stock, essentially." At that very moment came Metatron. Metatron is an angel,
Oh
and
no.
fell on his face and said in front of him, "Master of the universe, I should cry, but you should not cry." He said, "If you don't let me cry now, I will enter into the place where you have no permission to enter, and there I will cry, as it is written, for if you will not give heed, my inmost self will weep in the hidden places because of your arrogance." Jeremiah 13.
What are they
Alhamdulillah.
making up? What is this?
Alhamdulillah.
What is this?
I should
I
cry
can't-
where you should. Okay.
I can't believe this exists, bro. I can't.
He said if you.
Bruh,
I mean-
dude, you're not the first one, bro. You're not the first one.
There is a verse in the Quran like they that says like they take their monks as their gods. Like, is anyone familiar with that?
It was already, that was explained before, but anyways, just
Oh, okay. Cool, cool, cool.
17. I've already shown in other videos, Talmudic literature, that God actually cries in the Talmud. He cries over the destruction of the temple, and he does say stuff like, "Woe to me," right?
we just saw that, yeah.
The Holy One of Blessing said to the angel of the service, let's all, you and I, go see what the enemy did to my house." Immediately the angels of service, the Holy One of Blessing, and Jeremiah arrived in front of it. When the Holy One of Blessing saw the temple, he said, "Obviously this is my house and the place of my rest. The enemies came and did as they pleased." At that very moment the Holy One of Blessing cried and said, "Oh, oi, woe to me on account of my house. My children, where are you? My Kohanim, where are you? My beloved ones, where are you? What can I do for you? I warned you, and you did not do teshuvah." The Holy One of Blessing said to Jeremiah, "I'm like a person who had an only son and made a chuppah for him, and he died under his chuppah, and you have no empathy for me or my son. Go call Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and Moshe, because they know how to cry." So this is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and
Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub, and I have no idea.
Musa.
Alayhim salam.
Musa.
Moses.
It's Musa.
Jeremiah.
Musa? Musa is Musa?
Yeah.
Really? Wow, okay. So Musa, alayhi salam. So all four of them, alayhim salam.
Said to him, "Master of the universe, I don't know where Moses is buried." The Holy One of
Oh, yeah,
Blessing
yeah,
said,
he
"Go
confirmed
to
that,
River
yeah.
Jordan and yell, son of Amram, stand up and see your flock swallowed up by the enemies." Immediately
What
Jeremiah
is
went to the cave
this,
of
man?
Mashpelah and told the ancestors of the world, "Raise up, because the time of you being wanted by the Holy One of Blessing has arrived."
So here, like, God comes down to earth and he sees his house destroyed and he sees his followers just gone. And then he tells Ibrahim, Ishaq, Yaqub, and Musa alayhim salam to come and cry with him?
Oh,
Bro.
billah.
What logic?
They are going.
What
They're going too
is, man? And then
Going
you
too
guys,
far.
and then you can't blame me. I'm talking to the audience. You can't blame me for saying that their creativity is just so unbound to this reality, man. Like
Yeah,
you
they just
can't,
made up a story.
like what is this? Like how can their brains make this stuff up?
Allahu
They
Akbar.
asked him why, and he answered, "I don't know."
How did they
That was
comprehend
because
it?
he was afraid
Like-
they would say, "It was under your days that this happened to our children." Jeremiah set them, and they went to the banks of the river Jordan and called, "Son of Amram." So, what is son of Amram? That is Moses, because Moses is the son of Amram, okay?
Imran, okay. I understand
Son of
this,
Amram,
right?
raise up, because the time of you being wanted by the Holy One of Blessing has arrived. He said, "Why is this day any different than any other day that I wanted by the Holy One of Blessing?" Jeremiah said, "I don't know." He set him. Moshe went to the angels of service, whom he knew from the times of the giving of the Torah, and asked, "High ones of the service, do you know why I am being wanted by the Holy One of Blessing?" They said to him, "Son of Amram, don't you know that the Beit Hamkedash, which is the temple, was destroyed and the people of Israel exiled?" He began screaming and crying until he got to the ancestors of
even
the
him?
world, and immediately they too tore their clothes and put their hands on their heads and began screaming and crying until they got to the gates of the Beit Hamkedash, which is the temple, and as soon as the Holy One of Blessing saw them, immediately.
Oh my God. What does the whole turning off their clothes and then putting their hands over their heads remind you of?
Exactly.
Bro.
What
I'm not gonna say it.
anime or what?
I'm not gonna say it because just to protect myself. But yeah, it reminds me of that. I guess the audience might understand who I'm referring to here, but just to protect myself, I'm not gonna actually
Lord, immediately Lord Elohim of hosts summoned on that day to weeping and lamenting, and to let hair go untrimmed, and to use of sackcloth.
What?
By the way, I think it'll be useful to go to Chagaiga 5b, which mentions God crying in the Talmud.
Oh my God.
As well.
What even is Chagaiga?
There's more to this than you might see. Okay, so
These are like
Gemara
the
asks,
hidden books.
but is
they
there crying
burned away
before
all
the
of
Holy
this.
One?
Like, they were
Blessed be. So
shocked
here they say, the
themselves
verse...
about
What
it.
you saying? What you saying?
I'm saying that maybe these are like the hidden books that they want don't want people to know, right?
But they have to study it though, so it's like so they make all these books and then hide it, but study it and then tell people and then put it on the internet. Man, these freaking people.
States,
Oh my
but if you will not hear it, my soul shall weep in secret for your pride. So the Rav is saying that the Holy One, blessed be he, has a place where he cries, right? Why does he cry? Because of the pride of the Jewish people. He cries due to the pride of the kingdom of heaven. And there's another place which mentions he cries because of the temple. Okay, so the Gemara asks, and doesn't God cry in the outer chambers? So here they're basically saying God cries in his innermost chambers, not in the outer chambers. Usually he doesn't cry in the outer chambers. So the Gemara asks, doesn't God cry in the outer chambers? Isn't it written? And on that day, the Lord, the God of hosts, called to weeping and to mourning and to baldness and to girding with sackcloth. The Gemara responds, the destruction of the temple is different, as even the angels of peace cried, as it is written, behold, their valiant ones cry without. The angels of peace weep bitterly. So this is...
Hold on, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, it like reminds me of the Greek gods and all, like Zeus and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Hercules.
outer chambers, inner chambers, and all these. Like they have
Bro.
castles.
Allah is above all this. Like, no, he can't be like this. That's they are talking about a human being. That's not Allah.
Exactly. It sounds like a fantasy book.
Yeah, bro. They say
Exactly.
like he's saying like let me cry. Like what? Like no.
And they even mentioned there is a place where the angel is gonna go, and the god is not allowed there. Where the angel is gonna go. I mean, like what? How can you like comprehend that? Even like coming up with these things, even then you are like, okay, that's...
Bro, I don't even know.
Assalamu alaikum.
This is Chagaiga 5b. In the Talmud, you can see this as well. As we return now to the Midrash. And weren't for the text to be explicitly written, one could not say it, but they were crying and walking from gate to gate as a person whose dead relative is in front of their eyes, and the Holy One of Blessing was speaking like one speaks a eulogy, saying, Oi to the king who was able in his early days, but was not able in his old age. At that moment, Rachel, our matriarch, jumped forward.
Okay, I guess
the Holy
that
One
somehow
blessed be he,
fixed
and
the
said,
problem.
Master of the universe,
Okay, dope.
it is known before you that your servant Yaakov's love for me knew no bounds, and he worked for me, and he worked for my father for 7 years for me. When those 7 years were completed and the time came for my marriage to my husband, my father advised exchanging me with my sister. This was exceedingly difficult for me. When I learned of this counsel, I informed Jacob, and I gave him a sign so that he could distinguish between me and my sisters, so that my father would not be able to exchange me. After that, I consoled myself. I suffered to overcome my desire, and had compassion for my sister, that she did not suffer disgrace, and I gave her all the signs that I had given to my husband, so that he would not think that she was Rachel. I acted kindly with her. I was not jealous of her, and I did not cause her to be shamed and disgraced. What am I, flesh and blood, dust and ashes, that I was not jealous jealous of my rival wife, that I did not allow her to be shamed and disgraced. But you, merciful, living, and eternal King, why were you jealous of idolatry that is of no import, and exiled my children, who you were slain by the sword, and allowed their enemies to do with them as they pleased? God's mercy was immediately revealed, and he said, For your sake, Rachel, I shall return Israel to their place, for there is a reward for your labor. And there is hope for your future, declares the Lord. Your children shall return to their country.
Yeah, I have no idea what that last part was all
Can
about.
can anyone give some context, like what is it's going on there? Like in this, I did it.
Wait, what?
The context,
asking
man,
for
like
the context.
this
Of this
who's
last,
talking to whom?
like this last part, I have
The
no
last
idea either. Like the last, I have no idea either. That's why I said like I have no
Like
idea
they
what.
were,
Like just the last
are
part.
they like the two women were speaking, or like a man, or like who's
Yeah,
speaking?
like I said, yeah, the last part I have no idea. I also have no idea.
And then
To their
double out
country.
of
So compare
context.
that now to the Quranic description of the event of the temple destructions. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقضينا إلى بني إسرائيل في الكتاب لتفسدن في الأرض مرتين ولا تعلن علوا كبيرا. And we decreed to the children of Israel in the scripture that you will surely cause corruption on the earth twice,
Yes.
and you will surely reach a degree of great haughtiness. Okay. فإذا جاء وعد أولاهما بعثنا عليكم عبادا لنا أولي بأس شديد فجاسوا خلال الديار وَكَانَ وَعْدًا مَفْعُولًا. So when the time of promise came for the first of them, we sent against you slaves of ours, those of great military might, and they probed even into the homes, and it was a promise fulfilled. ثم رددنا لكم الكرة عليهم وأمددناكم بأموال وبنين وجعلناكم أكثر نفيرا. Then we gave back to you, returned victory over them, and we reinforced you with wealth and sons, and made you more numerous in manpower. إن أحسنتم أحسنتم لأنفسكم وإن أسأتم فلها فإذا جاء وعد الآخرة ليسوءوا وجوهكم وليدخلوا المسجد كما دخلوه أول مرة وَلِيُتَبِّرُوا مَا عَلَوْا تَتْبِيرًا. If you do good, you do good for yourselves, and if you do evil, you do it to them, or yourselves, meaning. Then when the final promise came, we sent your enemies to sadden your faces and to enter the masjid, which is, you'd call it the temple, but it's masjid, or mosque in English, as they entered it the first time, and to destroy what they had taken over with total destruction.
Because in the beginning it was considered a masjid, so yeah, before they turned it into a temple.
عسى ربكم أن يرحمكم وإن أُتْتُمْ أُدْنَا وجعلنا جهنم للكافرين حصيرا. It is expected, if you repent, that your Lord will have mercy upon you, but if you return to sin, we will return to punishment, and we have made hell for the disbelievers a prison bed. So look at that. That is how God speaks, not what the Midrash tells and what the Talmud backs up.
Yeah, just sad. We'll go to the third video. So what is your thoughts?
Assalamu alaikum.
What are your thoughts so far?
I mean, it's pretty obvious that they try to make God look weak. God look like a human, actually. So, and that's actually sad because, I mean, even their book, their scripture, which is holy for them, is against that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, honestly. Oh god, Talmudic descriptions of God are not metaphorical. Okay, so this is just to solidify the fact that it's not metaphorical, so yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. In this video, I'm going to address a claim that you might hear every now and then from Jews, that all these problematic descriptions of God that we find in Tanakh and Talmud, etc., that these are all just metaphors, that God didn't actually he doesn't even actually get angry. He doesn't love. All these things are just metaphorical descriptions, and the way they describe it is God is just using human language for us to understand. And also, this bleeds into the one of my major critiques of the Talmud, even extends towards the Tanakh, where we have a weak God, we have a God who's brought down in many ways to the level of a human. So they say, no, this is all just symbolic, etc., etc. So I'm going to tackle that claim today. And the way I'm going to do this is we're first going to look at these Talmudic passages, and we'll see obviously the Talmudic era rabbis, those who were writing the Talmud and the Midrashim, they obviously thought that these were literal descriptions. It's so obvious when you read this rabbinic literature what they thought. Okay, so that's evidence number one, that it's just too obvious. Like when you read it, you know what's up. And the second way through which we can know that is by looking at early critiques of Judaism. And so we have actually secondary sources which back up people who were writing critiques of Judaism were mentioning that this is what the Jews and the rabbis believe. So we actually know from early church fathers and other sources that ancient rabbis actually believed these things as we find them literally stated in the Talmud. So those are the two things we'll go over today.
Unless the modern rabbis are trying to change that, like they've changed like the scripture and everything else by saying, no, it's metaphorical. So they're probably going to make a few of their old ancient rabbis, which I mean, it's nothing new to them.
Yeah, if they could, they would even like change the whole history, I guess. If they could.
Yeah, we can see that happening. Not like what was going on nowadays, where people like to change history a lot. Cough, cough, Israel, cough, cough.
And then it was later rabbis who, out of embarrassment and philosophical inclination, sort of reinterpreted these passages. So let's begin by looking at the Talmud, and it's so obvious what's going on here. So number one, let's look at this narration from Rabbi said to this rabbi, from where is it derived that the Holy One, blessed be He, wears phylacteries? So what are phylacteries? These are, it's actually a religious, it's actually a religious thing that Jews wear. It's like this black cube which has some verses from Torah which praise God in them, and they keep it so they remember as a sign that they should keep the Torah, etc., etc. So now they say,
some kufr,
from how do we know that God Himself wears these phylacteries? And then they say, as it is stated, the Lord has sworn by His right hand and by the arm of His strength. Okay. So then they explain, since it is customary to swear upon holy objects, it is understood that His right hand and the arm of His strength are the holy objects upon which God swore. Okay.
Man.
So then they mention, which verses are written in these phylacteries. What is written in the phylacteries of the Master of the World? This Rav replies, it is written, who is like your people, Israel, one nation in the land. God's phylacteries serve to connect Him in a sense to the world. The essence
this was
of
covered
which
in the
is Israel.
previous video.
Then they ask, essentially, what else is written? Here, Israel. So because you have made me a single entity in the world, as it is stated, that Israel declares God's oneness by saying, "Hear, Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." Deuteronomy 6. And because of this, I will make you into a single entity in the world, unique and elevated with the utterance, who is like your people, Israel, one nation in the land. Consequentially, the Holy One, blessed be He, is glorified through the glory of Israel, whose praises are written in God's phylacteries. Then they mention, so that's what's written in one of the compartments, because in these phylacteries there are 4 different compartments. Well, what about the other compartments? What is written in the rest of the compartments of God's phylacteries of the head, as you can see here? Then they mention all these other verses. Then they say, well, there are too many verses. There are only 4 compartments.
Yeah. So let me just clarify. So the phylacteries that the Jewish people wear, it has a praises to God, right? And they say that they claim that God also wears a phylactery that has praises to Israel. So you can see what's going on here. So
they say, well, some of them are jumbled together, right? So
that's back and forth. Fanboy.
If all of these verses are included in God's phylacteries,
it's like patting themselves on the back. Honestly, it feels this way.
Yeah, but it's wrong. Of course, it's also wrong. Of course, it's wrong.
Makes no sense.
Exactly. Thank you. It makes absolutely no sense.
as more than 4 were listed. Rather, the portions in God's phylacteries must be arranged as follows, and then they jumble some together, etc., etc. So, when you read this, this is obviously not a symbolic meaning. It's pretty clear what's going on. I'll give you another example. Here's from the Midrash. And this is actually very relevant, knowing that they saw God, they saw Adam as being literally created in the image of God.
Okay, we've seen this. We may as well skip, not only just for time, but also because we also kind of saw this already. So here he explains that, you know, God created Adam in God's image, astaghfirullah, so there's that. Oh yeah, this. Oh god, this one.
And then it's later rabbis who try and save this out of embarrassment. So, study. Okay, so let's go to another one. This is so obvious. In the Talmud. This is. There are 12 hours in the day. During the first 3, the Holy One, blessed be He, sits and engages in Torah study. Then during the second 3 hours, He sits and judges the entire world.
No.
And then what does He do? He sits on His throne of mercy.
No.
And then what does He do? He sits the world. And what does He do? He sits and makes sport with the Leviathan. As it is written, there is Leviathan, whom you have formed to sport with.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, this is good. Actually, counted on this, saying that, you know, in the past, like in the Quran, or I'm paraphrasing, where God states that, you know, He didn't create the world out of sport or out of joy or fun. This is so technically God is responding to this, where here it says in the Psalms, apparently in 104 verse 26, it says, there is Leviathan whom you have formed to sport with, meaning to have fun with. Yeah, so he goes into Torah studies, astaghfirullah adim, and then after he's done with his studies, astaghfirullah adim, he goes and plays with this Leviathan, astaghfirullah adim. So yeah, as you can see. Yeah, see, like this. Like if you guys were here like the last time we recorded this, then you would have like known a lot of this. But yeah,
sport means to play, so he's playing with the Leviathan. Okay, so I'll show you this here in the commentary.
I'm stunned by this Kufr.
We don't. The reason why I'm showing this to people, the reason why I'm showing and allowing you guys to be heard, is because I want to let the people know that we as Muslims, we don't accept this. And this is our reaction. We're frustrated. We're stressed out at looking at this. We're like horrified that this even exists.
Yeah.
Hence why this entire series is called Delving into Magic, Jinn, and Judaism, because they're all linked actually. Because they're all terrifying and horrifying and just filled with so much shirk.
Yeah.
And they actually, by the way, they're sadly one with each other. Like Jinn, magic, and Judaism are all actually one with each other. So much so that there's literally what was it? The hadith? What, like 70,000 Jews will be with Dajjal? Like, it's that bad. It's also that bad.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
a tradition in which God laughs
but I
playing
guess
with
one
the Leviathan
hurts you
every day, so he
physically,
plays.
the other one causes you brain damage.
Okay, sure.
Obviously, this is literal.
You know, not
like, there's no other way to read this.
You know,
and even
don't really agree to that analogy, but okay.
I'll address at the end the idea that, even if it's metaphorical, is it okay? I'll discuss that at the end, if I remember, inshallah. But then we see they mention God,
oh my God,
doesn't play anymore, and then they mention what does he do at night. So
no, please
go here.
Oh no.
One of the things they say you wish you can say that God does at night is he rides on his light cherub and flies in 18,000 worlds. As it is stated, the chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands, some. So they're even quoting scripture to prove their positions. And if
they're quoting something that they already tampered with, and then try to make exegesis on it. So it's like I don't know. Like, I don't know how this works. How does this work?
I'm actually disturbed.
No.
That's not a good tafsir, you know. But
brothers and sisters, here is a poor soul who has seen too much.
wish they instead that God sits and listens to the songs from the mouth of the angelic creatures, as it is stated by by day the Lord will command his loving kindness, and in the night his song shall be with me. Psalm 42:9.
His song shall be with me.
It's so obvious how the Talmudic rabbis were looking at this. But now let's go to some secondary evidence. So this is from...
This is the definition of cornering yourself with nonsense. To the point like where you can't actually fix the all of the nonsense you made.
And what's worse is that you believe in it. That you actually wholeheartedly believe in it. No irony. That's the worst part.
You
Yeah.
make up a story, then you believe it. That's
You
crazy.
tamper with scripture, and then you make up a story from that tampered scripture, and then you believe in it. Honestly, man, let's just move on. Hold on.
Secondary evidence. So this is from
Yeah, so they basically
article.
lie
I'll
the
show you
lie and then they believe it themselves.
Well, yeah, let's just continue real quick.
the title of the article in a second. Anthropomorphism in Talmudic literature, and here they mention. Okay, so I'm in the wrong place, but I'll just show you. This is the name of the article: Anthropomorphism in Talmudic literature, trends in Jewish thought and scholarly research. And if we go here, okay, so mentioned rabbinic literature should be read in its historical context with a greater emphasis on its literal meaning. Its investigations should be conducted with accordance with the categories of the research of methodology. So they're putting forward, this is one of the things that people, many scholars mention, should be done. This trend, once at the periphery of scholarship, has gained increasing acceptance among scholars in recent years based upon the immense diversity of anthropomorphisms in Midrash and primarily in reliance upon supplementary sources. There is a growing tendency among scholars toward the belief that the concept of God in human form is a constitutive element in the worldview of the Talmudic rabbis, or at least in certain central groups among them. So
what? Okay, I take back what I said earlier. They're not gonna change the metaphorical. They're slowly accepting the ancient rabbinical exegetes.
Wow.
They're slowly accepting the ancient rabbinic exegetes.
Wow.
Oh, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah.
If we go to this footnote at 117, they mention these sources, so these secondary sources that testify that Talmudic rabbis saw God like this.
Enoch is Metatron? Oh my, okay, yo.
They include the writings of the church fathers, primarily from the 2nd to the 4th century. So you have church fathers who are criticizing Judaism for having this human version of God. And by the way, I'll just say this. There are some things that are mentioned here, like God having fingers, hands, etc. Now, we have similar concepts in Islam, but if the Talmudic rabbis were actually literally thinking about God as Adam as resembling God, then when they speak about God's fingers and hands, etc., so they would imagine human fingers, human hands. That's not what we believe in Islam. Yes, we believe God has something like a hand. That's mentioned in the Bible as well, that God has a hand, etc. God has a face. But what we say about that is we have a face, we have hands, and God also has a face, God also has hands and stuff. But his hand, for example, is not like our hand. The way we think of a hand, it's not like that hand. It's unique to him. It's completely different, and it's not like our hand. Okay,
exactly,
so
yeah.
Yes, we have a hand, and God has a hand, but his hand is different to us.
I explained this before. Like he has what he tells us. We don't try to interpret it from our own definitions, from what we have. If he tells us he has something, we just accept it and move on. The meaning behind what he says is up to him alone. Yeah.
Yeah, because just like how suppose there's a song and you sing it with your mouth and you play it in a recorder, there's a difference, right? But both it's the same song you are playing, but it's a difference because one you are doing with your own mouth and face, but if you a guy who doesn't have any knowledge about technology and all, if he sees that, he will call it magic and all, because he will say, where's the tongue of the device or something like that. So yeah.
Okay, that's a weird analogy, but let's just move on.
The main point I'm trying to show you here is that if the Talmudic rabbis did believe in these things literally, which they obviously did, it's so obvious, then this is supported by the fact that you have outside testimony from other groups testifying to this. So the writings of the church fathers, they attest to the Jewish conception of God as possessing human form. The early Jewish mystical writings, all collected in what is known as the Hekalot and Merkabah literature, the New Testament, Jewish Christian sources, Gnostic sources, and even parts of the Kabbalah. Starting from the end of the 12th century, some researchers have suggested that conclusions may be drawn from this literature regarding Talmudic literature. From this literature regarding Talmudic literature. Anyway, point is, they're mentioning church fathers and many other sources which testify that they actually literally believe this
So, alhamdulillah, some church fathers know about this, but do all Christians know about this? Yeah, I really doubt it.
Another article on this. And here they mention Zoroastrian critiques.
Zoroastrian.
So, this is from the 9th
century. Like we say in Arabic, like you're the last people to speak right now, Zoroastrians.
And they mention that the Zoroastrians, they had a problem with the corporeality of God in
Bruh, they're the last people to speak.
Tradition. You can read this all out if you want. So they were, what is corporeality? So they mentioned God, corporeality. That means being like a human, essentially. The quality being physical, consisting of matter, corporeality, physicalness, materialness, etc. So they mention things like God growing tired, etc., etc. Now, in fact, this whole idea of like this philosophical God that many Jews will put forth today, and this idea that everything is metaphorical, these sorts of ideas that God doesn't actually have these attributes, you won't find anything like that in the Bible, nor in Talmudic era literature. Of course, if you ask Jews today, and some of these things I mentioned, like God getting angry and Jews taking that literally, that's pretty obvious if we read the Bible. But today, Jews will say, oh, that is metaphorical. It's just using language to describe God so humans can understand. But any reading of the Bible in the Talmudic era literature does not support that. It doesn't. Clearly, the Talmudic era rabbis believed God was above. It's even mentioned in the Bible, God is above. And that when they speak about these things regarding God, and my interest, of course, is whenever they start attributing weaknesses to God, I'm not or I am not definitively critiquing this from the point of view of like these Zoroastrians here who would say, oh, why don't you have this philosophical conception of God? No, we don't agree with that in Islam. What I'm critiquing is these ideas of, oh, it's all metaphorical. I'm responding to that. I'm saying, no, it's not metaphorical. These Talmudic era rabbis did not see it as metaphorical. They thought about it literally. Then later, when philosophy, and a lot of this actually came about because Jews were they were living in
where
in an Islamic empire. Before that, they had many critiques which contributed to. Then they were living in an Islamic empire, and unfortunately, the Islamic empire was very influenced by philosophy. It was very, very influenced by philosophy.
So it's our fault. God damn it. So wait, so it's our fault then?
And that led to a lot of deviant sects that came about in Islam who used philosophy to reject the clear meaning of the Quran, etc., etc. And that sort of thinking affected the Jews as well.
No, yep, it's our fault.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. Yeah, sometimes some type of philosophy, falsafa. I think it's falsafa.
Yeah, philosophy is falsafa, yeah.
Yes, falsafa.
So, some part of philosophy is kind of bad, for religion.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what he's trying to say, and actually destroy the Judaism. But
honestly, man, now I feel terrible now. No, I feel absolutely terrible now that our philosophers. I mean, okay, we can't really blame them exactly, but the very core of philosophy has had a hand in creating this mess.
But it was indirect.
And I mean, what makes this worse is because it happened within the Islamic Empire. So that's the beautiful, astounding history behind the. Let's just move on. This is
and again, this is also what scholars point out. So I've shown already a couple references, but here's another reference. This is a scholar who looks at the Bible. He looks at Talmudic sources. So here, for example, he shows a Talmudic narration which clearly describes God as having a little finger through which he consumes the angels with fire. It's a pretty literal narration if you read it. And then he looks at what many of the early sages, how they interpreted these passages, as well as sort of they interpreted these biblical sources and what was in the Talmud. And he mentions Christians and Zoroastrians, etc., who criticized Jews for this. And then at the end, this is his conclusion. Ancient Jewish belief attributed to God a figure and all its parts, such as hands, fingers, etc. This gigantic figure had no measure in biblical times, but was an issue of speculation in the Talmudic period. When sages began to identify its precise size, the only difference between Shir Choma and Talmudic sources is that Shir Choma shows a highly systematic and more intensive calculation of God's sizes. This difference does not necessarily reflect any assumed gap in between those sources in the post-Talmudic period. Jews were under theological and philosophical pressure that made them reject anthropomorphic beliefs by reshaping old texts or even by not copying them. By the way, anthropomorphic just means the attribution of human characteristics or behavior to a god, animal, or object, something that many rabbis today, etc., would say, no, that's all just language the Bible is using and the Talmud is using to make humans understand. No.
I wish you could see my face right now. I honestly wish you could see my face right now. But
clearly those rabbis believed in these anthropomorphic beliefs, but later on these were rejected by reshaping old texts or even by not copying them. Needless to say that this polemic led to the blurring of the anthropomorphic God in Talmudic texts. However, the ancient belief did survive, mostly not under Muslim rule, in Provence, France, and southern Germany. In those places, many sages and probably laymen as well thought that there was nothing wrong in believing in an anthropomorphic God as their forefathers did. And of course, all this applies to our criticisms when we talk about how, they speak about God having phylacteries, wearing phylacteries, studying Torah, playing, etc. So the fact that they were looking at all these texts literally, of course, it also shows that they were looking at the text that we show to show they had that the Talmudic God is a very weak God and a deficient God as well. That they actually literally believed those things as they're clearly written out in the Talmud, and in fact, anyone who just reads it can tell that's what they meant as well. So nowadays, many Jews will say God is nowhere; He's not even above His heavens.
Oh, fantastic! Okay.
Whenever the Bible describes God, it's metaphorical. Maimonides was like this.
He's nowhere, but no, he's in his inner chambers sometimes. He's in his outer chambers sometimes. He's in his residence. He's in the temple that which God destroyed. But he's also nowhere.
He's actually everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah. So that's the origins of his omnipresence, I guess. Which is like, come on, man.
He came.
And by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, but we believe that God is omnipresent temporally, but not spatially.
He can do everything he wants.
Yeah, but what befits His Majesty, of course, and what befits His attributes.
Yeah, whatever he wills.
Philosophical background, and he became very popular. He's very popular amongst the Jews. But Maimonides, whenever he would see something in Tanakh or Talmudic literature which he didn't like, it didn't go in line with his Greek philosophy, he would say it's metaphorical. So we see this, for example, he says any description of God which is somehow like God gets angry and all this is all just language, and it must be understood metaphorically. So he makes these things up because they don't align with his philosophical beliefs. And so my critique of Judaism, I'm looking at the Talmudic rabbis, I'm looking at what the books actually say, what these rabbis actually believed, and I'm critiquing it. Now, Jews today are philosophically inclined and influenced by Greek philosophy and all these things, and also they're embarrassed. Frankly, they're embarrassed by a lot of the stuff that we find here. The Talmudic era descriptions of God, for example, God wearing phylacteries, they find that embarrassing. Some of them do. In fact, most of them do, if not all of them. And so, out of embarrassment, they try and cover it up. Just like, for example, the Bible says God rests and refreshes. The word for refresh is used elsewhere as well, and actually means, to take a breath, and it means that, you recover from tiredness. That's how it's used elsewhere as well. But Jews and Christians are embarrassed, and they're embarrassed by it, so they have to try and reinterpret it. So it's embarrassment and it's philosophical influence that causes Jews to sort of reinterpret these clear passages. But, whenever they find something in their books that it's hard to deal with, reinterpret. Oh, it doesn't mean that. Oh, it doesn't. No, it does. And if we start reinterpreting everything we find in our literature because it doesn't align with our beliefs, then what's the point, right? What's the point of anything? And so it's actually very ironic because Jews will criticize Christians for reinterpreting the Bible. They'll say, no, you have to read it in its context. You have to do exegesis, not eisegesis. Exegesis means you read the text and take out what the text is actually saying. Eisegesis means when you're reading into the text. But ironically, Jews will do eisegesis. They will read into the text whatever they want whenever they're looking at their books and they find something problematic.
So Jews lie as they breathe, I guess. At this
Yes,
point.
indeed.
Yeah. Well, in this case, of course.
Are you surprised?
Yeah, and then they wonder why we don't take their isnad, as trustworthy.
Now, even if hypothetically, even if we are to say that these are in fact metaphors, that doesn't actually solve the problem.
It just makes it worse.
Because that's not an excuse, right? So
Yeah.
imagine someone insults God for 5 hours, because that's essentially what these are, hours and hours of writings insulting God, ascribing deficiencies to God, etc. So imagine someone
Not hours, millenniums, dude. Like, this has been for so long, man.
insults God for 5 hours, and then at the end he just goes, "Don't worry, it's all a metaphor." No, that's not an excuse. Okay, you still deserve to be cursed by God and go to hell.
Imagine they're
Right?
still
So
doing
imagine
this.
someone were to insult your mother for 5 hours, right? With the worst of insults, and then at the end, after 20 minutes of insulting your mother, he just goes, "Don't worry, buddy, it's all a metaphor." No, that guy, that doesn't solve it. Okay, we've still got a problem.
That's nothing.
Yeah, but yeah, let's just call it a day. Okay, we'll call it a day. Okay, khalas, we're stopped. We're done.
Not him, bro. Not him.
Yeah, oh my god, we're done. We're done for today. We've wasted too much for today. My god. So, what are your thoughts before we end this bloody freaking recording?
Nah, bro. I just want to say, bro, if you want to see, like, if you want to learn about magic, I mean, the Talmud is your thing, bro. No, for real. I'm serious.
I know.
Just go to the Talmud and, yeah, doing some Harry Potter stuff, you know.
And not just the Talmud, the Zohar, Kabbalah, you could just go into these freaking cults and books, and that's it. You learn how to do magic for free. Of course, you have to buy the books as well. Like, I mean, I don't think your nearest library will have these books at all. So, of course, we're being sarcastic. Don't go do it. Of course, we're just being sarcastic.
Yeah, don't
still,
do it.
Yeah.
it's like come on, man. Seriously, this is just, oh, man. It's strange that they accept this. They accept this as like truth and revelation, and it just blows my mind. It's like, how can you do this to yourself?
I don't think they read their books as much as we do. Not even nearly close. That's the thing. That's why when like we call out these things, they just like start nervously sweating, and they're like, "Oh, this is metaphorical." Like it's such a fallacy. It's such a bad excuse.
Yeah, or they use whataboutism arguments. That's the sad thing. They always do.
Yeah, it's like they're like, "Oh, this is spiritual. It's not like literally, or this is metaphorical."
Or they try to change the subject.
I guess they cannot like. I understand why they are like desperately trying to defend their like it's something they have been following since childhood, so they are not gonna like abandon everything so easily.
They saw their father. They saw their fathers and forefathers follow. Yeah, funny that all of this is all of what we're talking about is mentioned by God Himself in the Quran.
Yeah.
Yes, subhanallah.
Yes, subhanallah. Yeah. All of this was mentioned in the Quran. Yeah, like this very discussion that we had right
he
now.
had full knowledge of all of this.
Yeah, and it also proves that the Prophet ﷺ was indeed a prophet. Because how like even Squid like made an argument, how could the Prophet ﷺ know all of this? Despite him being Arab in the middle of the desert, not having the amount of scripture that we have today, and not knowing Hebrew, and even the Sahaba had to like in the battles that they had with like the traitors and those who broke the treaties, they had to go and learn Hebrew. So he didn't have any sources to back him up. How would he know all of this except that he's indeed a prophet and that God gave him all of this revelation and He warned him about all of this? directly or indirectly, and he even warned us too about this. And here it is. And here I am trying to, fulfill this duty about warning my brothers and sisters from, what this is going on, because this is being used today to do a lot of, crazy amounts of problems nearly everywhere you go. Like in the dark rural areas, and high elites do this kind of stuff as well. And even like even like I mean it's a meme now, but even in Hollywood and stuff, and all that fame and fortune, even in the rap and in the music industry, some of them like actually like put these influences in there because they think it's cool and hip, and they like to like have some form of control and whatnot. But this is my duty to do it. Like I see this, I have to warn people. I can't just sit down idly and just allow this to happen and not let my brothers and sisters take the necessary precautions to protect themselves.
I think that should be the duty of every single like true Muslim, not just your duty.
I mean, this brother, this brother, like he's doing his best, but it's not getting as many views. So, I mean, I think I already put his link in the second video. I'll double check if I did not put the link. But yeah, please do check out in the description below the link, and do subscribe to him, and please do help him and spread the message. And also, if you want to clip the stream, not the stream, if you want to clip this recording and turn it into parts, please do so. It would greatly like spread this thing even more, and we want to get this out there because this is pretty dangerous. Inshallah. It's very, very scary, very dangerous. So yeah, any closing statements?
Yeah, my thoughts, I would say, like, after hearing all that madness, what I just witnessed with you guys, mashallah, I would say it's more clearly now for me. So, because as a kid, I used to go to school and studies and all that kind of stuff, and then I always ask, why do I have to describe God? Why do I have to draw him and all that stuff? Because I'm from a Christian country, and even from a as mentioned, I'm from South Germany, so that's more typical here. As he said, it's true. So 100% they still do it here. So when I hear all that kind of stuff, I was like, SubhanAllah, it's more clear now for me. So,
like even from these videos, like even the previous videos, we've learned a lot, like the origins of many practices that people of Jahiliyyah and even like others like before them and after are doing even nowadays. Like for example, in the Jewish Talmud, I think, if I remember correctly from like the previous video, where the Jews would like be ashamed or would be fearful of having a girl as a newborn because they saw it as like a curse or like a bad thing. And then I even said in the video, we wonder why the Arab pagans used to bury their own daughters. So it reached them too. So yeah, like again, like it like this kind of evil spreads. And it's just like this is like and people might say this is an exaggeration. Where in the description of the previous video, I wrote that it's the mother and the root of all evil. You can't blame me because all of the stuff that we're seeing, there's shirk, there's magic, there's jinn, there's a whole slew of negative things that I can't really say here, but it's like
and you can see traces of it spreading after that. Like you can see traces. You are not just like jumping into conclusions. Like you are actually, your statement is actually backed up by evidence in history. And from what we just read, I mean, you can't say otherwise.
Yeah, this is all going on in life as well, like around us. Even if you go to like all these other like sources, if you look at even today, even nowadays, it's still going on. Like this kind of stuff, even if it was behind closed doors and behind us knowing, it's still happening. It is real. It's all real.
Yeah, and you can't deny that.
You can't deny reality, man. But as to not elongate this video any longer because it's already long as is, I'm gonna close it. I was gonna stop here. So thank you, brothers and sisters. Please take care and stay safe. Wa ma'as salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.